and welcome to another video. We are in the woods for the day and the plan is to forage for some leafy greens that we can add to our lunch. I've got some lamb and I think we're going to have a really cool day. We've got some dandelion leaves here. These are edible. The young ones are preferable, but the flower is also edible on this plant, and you can actually roast the roots of the dandelion and use it as a coffee substitute, which is cool. Down here is our trusty birch polypore, but we've already got plenty of those at home, so we'll leave that one. That's something interesting. Just taken these tiny little really dry looking mushrooms off of this oak tree here. They're giving me like a false turkey tail vibe, but I think they're maybe a little bit small for that. So I'm not 100% sure what these are. So if you know what these are, then let me know in the comment section. Something very interesting here. Now this, I believe, is black witch's butter. This is a really cool fungus. It's pretty much the same as the yellow witch's butter. So it's sort of like this black gelatinous texture. It's quite difficult to take off. Just gonna head down to the water's edge and investigate that little patch. I spotted this stuff last time I was here, and this is a little wild garlic patch. You've got to be very careful to not trample on the young ones when you come down to a patch, because if you damage them they won't come back the following year. This is beautiful stuff. So wild garlic can look very similar to a lot of things. You're typically looking for that nice broad flat leaf. On the underside of the leaf it has lines as well, and if you crush it between your fingers and sniff them, you should get a very, very strong garlic smell. And it's very important that you pick one leaf at a time, because there are other things that grow right next to this that are poisonous that could easily be mistaken if you're just scooping up handfuls and not paying attention. For example, this and this here, these are growing literally right next to the garlic, but that's not edible, that's not wild garlic. So the leaves, the bulbs of this plant are also edible, but I believe this is a protected species, so you need permission to dig up the bulbs, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. But you can forage for the leaves, that's perfectly fine. These are edible, and the flowers when they come out are edible as well. So we'll return here probably in a month's time and we'll pick some flowers as well. There's also some white hoof fungus on the birch tree down there, but I can't quite get to that stuff. It is the spring officially. There are flowers everywhere. There's some really interesting wild edibles, and the warmer temperatures and the longer days are giving me an opportunity to sit back and relax and actually play around with some of the resources that are both essential for survival and just fun to know about. This basket here is made from honeysuckle vine. You can see it's a sort of rudimentary style, really basic woven basket, and I believe that anybody can do this, so stick with me and I'll show you how to make your own basket that you can take out and use for foraging. You actually only need two tools for this project. One is a knife and the other is some cordage. You can weave baskets out of a lot of different types of material. Blackberry vine, spruce needles, honeysuckle, which is what we're going to be using today, ivy, clematis. There's so many things that you can use, grass. So this is a really good one to have a go at if you've got kids as well and you want to try and get them out and get them making stuff in nature. But the material that is most abundant in this particular woodland is honeysuckle, so that's what we're going to use. You can identify the honeysuckle vine by its papery bark, which comes off in these really thin strips. And this bark is also really good for fire lighting, and the actual vine itself is a good half board for the hand drill friction fire set. So that's a really good way to identify this vine. A good way is it has these really sort of classic looking leaves, and on the underside they're a little bit kind of furry. They're like a light green on the top and almost like a greyish sage green on the bottom, and they do yield a red berry, but the berry is toxic, so do not eat the berry when you see it in the summer. Right, once you have collected your materials, the first step is to give them a clean. So I'm going to be removing all the offshoots, and I'm going to be taking off all the leaves off of everything I've collected, so that I'm just left with long flexible stems. You can actually soak your materials overnight in water, in a stream or something, and come back the next day and do this, but it is possible to do this straight away, pick things and weave them into a basket immediately. You just have to be prepared to accept the fact that you're probably going to have a lot of cracking, whereas obviously if you soak the material overnight first, that's less likely to happen. Okay, so the first step is to get some material and convince it that it wants to form two loops. A loop like that, and a loop like that, and then reach in and see if you can encourage them to slot one inside the other like this. And what this does is it will create one loop, will create your handle and base, and another will create your rim. And if you can't quite manage that, then you can always just make two separate loops as well. You do that by just being very careful and just locking them into each other like that, and then you can place one loop inside the other like that, and you can tie them with string. So when I'm securing these ends, I'll take the working end and I'll go round and round and round after I've looped the cordage around the bit that I want to tie, and then I'll put the end through like that, and then bring it back on itself. Pull it tight, and then that will hold it secure. And then I'll also just do a couple of what are called wraps and fraps. So I'll just go around like that in a crisscross to make it extra stable. So once you've created your basic sort of shape, you decide which bit's going to be the rim and which bit's going to be the handle, and then you grab it by the bottom, get some fresh material, and you're actually going to pull this material in towards the bottom, and that is going to be the start of creating the spokes that you're going to weave around. So we'll tie this as well. So I'm just going to add another set of spokes. So you see, that's going to be the extra one that we don't need. So we can either break that off, or we can combine it with one that already exists. so that it's nice and neat. Okay, so hopefully it makes sense. We've got a handle here. This is the bottom, and as you can see, you need an odd number of spokes. So what we've done is we've tied these two here together. So we've actually got one, because we'll treat that as one spoke. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that means that when we start weaving, it will actually alternate all the way through. Before I actually start weaving the body, I'm just going to make sure that I'm happy with the positioning of the spokes against the rim, and I'm just going to tie these in place. But don't trim these. You can trim them a little bit, but don't trim them too short, because as you weave, the basket will flex and these will actually sink in against the rim. So if you trim them too short, they'll actually pop out and then you'll lose your whole project. So if you can resist the urge and you can cope with the messiness, don't trim them until you're actually finished. The fire has burnt down and heated up the surface of our rock that is underneath. So I'm just going to brush these bits of charcoal away, give the rock a dust, and we're going to cook our meat wrapped in our foraged goodies straight on the rock. Right, well, we'll cut this open, have a look at it. Lovely. Smells really garlicky. Lovely. Okay, so this has probably taken me about maybe an hour to do. So as you can see, it's a little bit wonky, but that's okay. We've now ended up with a basket, and that's the handle. And you can see a couple of the spokes have actually disappeared as I've woven, as they've sunk. So that's why I say again, don't trim them until you're actually finished. But these ones, they're a little bit too thick for me to weave them in to the body. Although that one will go. So if they are not too thick, you can just weave these spokes actually into the main body of the basket so that they disappear. But if they are too thick to do that, then you can just snip them off. And there you have it. Well, this fire is well and truly out.
So that means it's time to go home.
So this larger basket contains firelighting material, and this actually lives in my permanent shelter. So I'm just going to quickly put it back. This little guy is small enough to come home with me and go in my little cabinet, and I'm actually going to use this to forage some little bits and bobs on my way home. So any more wild garlic that I pick, I can actually keep it nice in here instead of crunching it up and putting it in my bag. So this little guy's going to come in handy. Already have dandelion flower and dandelion leaves. We've got some black witch's butter, and we've also got some hazel catkins as well. Hazel catkins, I'm surprised that there still are catkins on the trees, but those, you can roast those up and eat them, and I'm sure you can turn them into a flower as well, but I've actually not done that personally. So if anybody tries that, let me know how it goes. This is all blackthorn, and they produce the sloe berries. You're probably familiar with things like sloe gin, stuff like that. There's nothing on these because obviously it's the wrong time of year, but yeah, I'll be coming and getting some berries off of these to make my own gin, hopefully in September. These are well past their best before, but these are rose hips, and I believe that all rose hips are edible. You just have to remove the seeds from the inside. But these are definitely not edible. I mean, look at them, they're absolutely gone. But you can usually find these up here where I am right till November edible. So yeah, that's something else to just keep your eyes peeled for. Here, this is common gorse. It's very spiky. You can see the yellow flowers are just starting to come in now, and you can eat these flowers. You can eat the flowers, and some people use them to make like a lemonade substitute, but that's not something I've tried personally. Past here, and you can smell the garlic, but you have to be very careful because not all of this will be garlic. All of this all looks like wild garlic, but you'd be surprised to find that there could be something hiding in here that is actually poisonous. So even in a patch like this, still one leaf at a time. Gorse bush with some of the flowers are actually open, so we're going to take some of these petals as well. As you can see from the fence behind me, we have officially approached civilization, so I'm going to call it here. So if you like what you see and would like to see more videos from me or more videos like this, let me know. Yeah, I'm going to go home and give these all a good wash and get cooking. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the woods.